Today we're going to make goulash. So that's any kind of a beef roast or shoulder meat or whatever inexpensive meat is fine for goulash. We cut off the fat and we're going to take the heavy silver skin, what is there, muscle skin, and we take that off and then we dice the meat. There was another big piece of silver skin right in the middle. I cut it along and I will trim this off too. The small stuff, we don't have to worry about it. When the meat cooks, it will all be nice and tender. But those really thick pieces, they will not cook. They will be in your teeth. So we cut those out. I decided not to use all that meat. So the recipe is more like for a family of 4 and not like the restaurant we used to have. So this is about a little over a pound, maybe a pound and a half before trimmings. And I cut it in tiny little dices, so this will be perfect for a normal smaller family. You can always double up on the recipe. There's also about a pound and a half of onions, what we're going to cut later. So I like to tap that meat, make it kind of dry. So when it goes in the pot, that it will sizzle and not just get cooked slowly in water. I use plenty Spanish paprika and a little salt to start out with. I start heating up about 2 tablespoons of canola oil, and I'm going to work like a couple teaspoons salt and at least 2 tablespoons full of paprika, and I work that into the meat. So I put the meat in the hot oil. And the trick is not to move it for quite a while. Don't stir it, and then it will not get brown. Just let it get brown on one side real good before you do anything. Just like making hash browns or fried potatoes. You let it sit. You don't stir and stir and stir. In the meantime, we cut our onions. Cut them first in half, then in quarters. We cut that little end piece off so they don't stick together. And cut them all nice and fine like this. Okay, this seems to be nice, starting to get brown. Now I'm gonna turn it a little bit. And again, I nearly did too much stirring. It has, we don't want it to develop any juices and boil in its own juices. We want it to brown on other edges of the meat now. So we're not going to do anything right now again. But if you do get too much juice in it where it just boils, just pour the juice all off into a dish on the side and let the meat brown. And then later on you can add the juice back in. This is getting perfectly brown. So we're going to take our onions and throw them in with our beef. It looks like it's a lot of onions, but they will cook down to nothing, and it's going to make a wonderful gravy without having to use a lot of flour and water to thicken it, and the taste is so much better. Now we cook this now until it's all brown and cooked down a little bit. The meat and onions, it's only like 6-7 minutes, are getting already a little bit closer to the point where we want it. So this is getting pretty brown, and normally I would use like a half of those little cans of tomato paste. I couldn't find any, So I'm going to take a full can of tomato sauce and just have to cook it a little bit longer than the paste. The paste only takes a couple of minutes because it's so concentrated. This has more water in it, so you want to get that a little bit brown too. So I put 1/2 cup of red wine in. I missed it with my video recording here. But the alcohol will cook out and the flavor will stay in. This is going to be beautiful. Okay, this is doing very well. It's not getting dry yet, but I don't want to let it get that far. And I will 1 can diced tomatoes in my stew. Let it come to a boil and then turn it down on real low, so it just can slowly bubble away until the meat gets tender, because we did not use filet or New York strip meat here. As this cooks very, very slowly away, now is the time to make the spice, the final spice for the goulash. So I cheat a little bit. I make a whole bunch of that spice and freeze it. And then when I make goulash, I just break a piece off and put it in. What this consists of is, for this amount of meat, maybe 1/3 of just the yellow peeling of a lemon, not the white, that makes it bitter. And maybe 5-6 cloves of garlic, and maybe 1/2 teaspoon of caraway seed. And that I chop really, really fine. Actually, I do it in an old coffee blender, what I bought especially to grind spices for $5 at Salvation Army. And this we add in right before we finish the stew, the goulash, so it doesn't get bitter in it. So it just picks up the flavor and we switch it off. So I found a little baggie with diced green peppers in my freezer from our garden from last year. Goulash is a nice way to use this up in, but this is completely not necessary. I just want to use things because our peppers in the gardens are growing again right now, and we got to get rid of the old stuff. At this time, I also put in a little bit of our homemade cayenne. Goulash should be a little bit spicy, but you got to be very careful with it. Rather go a little bit more later than putting in too much right away and now. So I added the special spice with the caraway seed and the garlic and the lemon peel. And I think it cooked for about an hour, and the little pieces are tender. And I'm going to switch it off. And if you're interested, look up my Erwin Gaa making Spätzle recipe. And it goes very well with German Spätzle. Bye bye. Since we don't want to waste anything, I take those trimmings from the beef, some lovage, or you can take some celery or whatever, a little bit carrot, a little bit garlic, and the end pieces of the onions, and I put it in a pot with cold water with a bay leaf and 2-3 cloves, and let it slowly boil for an hour or so, and we have a wonderful beef broth. So we got the bay leaves, cloves, onions, celery. Put some cold water in it. This is important. and we cook it very slow because hot water would seal the flavors in, but we don't want flavors in our trimmings. We want the flavors out. So we go cold water, slow boil, so the broth gets good. Drain the broth I made, and I put some vermicelli, very fine little noodles in there. And when they're done, I'm going to add green onions and the stuff that was cooking in there to make the broth. I scraped the carrots a little bit, and the garlic and the onions, I chopped it up and took some nice green onions, and I will add it to my broth. So here I have all that stuff, and I'm going to put it in my soup. And this is going to be excellent. It's going to be my lunch as a side product. So I wrapped a little bit fresh ground nutmeg on it, and now it's perfect.